Hey, Ren Robbins here, podcast strategist, and I'm so excited that you joined me for the episode of Don't Wing It today. Today, we're going to be talking what comes after your podcast launch day. I'm going to be talking to two people today. The first group is someone who wants to start a podcast but hasn't yet. You're trying to get all the information that you can get, and you want to really launch it well, and you want to make sure that you have time and space in your life to do this for your business. And so that is one person I'm talking to today. The other person I'm talking to is if you have already launched a podcast and started a podcast, but then you're thinking, okay, I've launched it, now what? So I'm going to be talking to those two different groups of people today. Have you ever thought to yourself, am I going to have enough time to do this? Am I going to have the bandwidth for this? What about the step-by-step things I need to do on a weekly basis? I don't know if I'm going to follow through. If you've ever felt any of those feelings, I want to tell you this podcast is for you. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 must-dos for your podcast after it launches. So let's jump in. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do, you must have a plan. You know, you've heard that phrase, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But it's true. If you don't plan, then it will not happen. I think there's some kind of crazy percentage that if you write your goals down, you will actually accomplish that goal because you wrote it down. And so I want to encourage you to write your plan down, whatever it is. If Mondays you want to create your content, and then Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays do something different, like record or edit, then I want to encourage you to write that plan down. Okay. So you want to make sure you have a plan, but the main thing is that you do it. You do it. So whatever the plan is, you see what you have on the docket to do on Mondays, and you do it. You carve out a little bit of time every day for your podcast and you make it happen. So you can have a podcast with part-time hours. And I actually have a podcast episode from Don't Wing It a few weeks ago of how to have a podcast, how to start a podcast in part-time hours. So I'll put that in the show notes for you to go back and listen to it. I think it's only about a 7 or 8 minute episode. Okay, so that was number 1. You have to have a plan. You must have a plan and you must do it. Okay. All right. Number 2. Number 2 is you must batch or time block your week. Now, if you have a big, large chunk of time and you are okay planning and batching more than one episode, more than one piece of content, and you can have that in your brain and it's very clear for you. This is one episode. This is the next episode. If you can do that well and you have a large chunk of time, then I encourage you to try to batch that work. And batch, what I mean by that is doing things that are alike. So if you have 2 episodes that you want to write the content for your podcast, you would write the podcast episode. And then the next thing was you would write the second episode. And then maybe you would do that on a Monday. And then Tuesday, maybe you would break it down and say, I'm going to record these 2 episodes. So that is for you if you have a large chunk of time. And also if you can think of more than one piece of content at a time. Okay. Some people can't do it, and that's fine. You got to pick what works for you. So I say you must batch or you must time block. Now, time block is a little differently used because it is when you have shorter pockets of time and you are able to only focus on one piece of content. I will tell you, I kind of mix the two sometimes when I'm batching recording, but not often. I usually like to do time blocking. So I have, an hour set aside on Mondays to create that podcast episode. And then Tuesday, I might record it. And then Wednesday, I would send it to my editor to edit. And then I would also be doing the show notes for that. So that is another must do for your podcast after you launch it. Okay. So you must time block or you must batch. Okay. And we are wanting to do this after our launch, okay, or after our podcast launch, we have our first 3 episodes out, and then this is how to create it sustainably. Okay, we want to be able to commit to this and to have it to be sustainable for our business, creating this podcast every week. Okay, all right. So that was number 2. Okay, number 3 is you must let your podcast work for you. You must have your podcast work for you. And I'm going to give you the word that's going to bring this all together. This is how you allow your podcast to work for you. Repurpose. Repurpose, which means we take one thing that we've already created, AKA our podcast episode, and we pull things from it to repurpose in other places. That means we're not having to recreate the wheel. We take this piece of content and you pull different things out of that content for social media. Maybe you want to post a quote on Twitter. Maybe you want to post a reel on Instagram where you talk about the things you talked about on the podcast, just wetting their whistle, not telling them the whole thing. And maybe you want to take a portion of that podcast. Maybe you talked about 3 or 4 different things, and maybe you want to take one of those things and talk about it in a Facebook Live. And so, and one thing, you might want to take that and then create and tell a story in your email for your email list subscribers. So there are so many ways that you can repurpose what you have done. Creating that first episode after your launch, you can pull different things from that. Okay. So you must repurpose. You must let your podcast work for you. That is really important. You've done the hard work. You've done the creation of that podcast episode. Now it's time to repurpose and pull things from it. And that's where the creativity comes from. That's where you can pray and ask God to help you be creative with this episode. And so that is a great plan. Okay. So those are the 3 must-dos for your podcast. Okay, here's how I can help. I can help you if you have not started your podcast yet and you want to start it from the ground up the right way. And how you can do that is you can book a call with me where we can talk about how I can help you and talk about the specific things that I can give you in my Podcast Runway 101 coaching program. Now, that's going to include 6 live calls. It is going to have 6 weeks of Voxer one-on-one access to me. And then it is going to have many more things. Listen to these resources that I'm going to give you through my program. I am going to give you my streamlined framework and calendar of how I streamline my podcast and all that goes with it each week. So you're spending minimal time on it. I'm also going to give you my 3-month content plan that will work for you so that you have the content ideas there. And that is when you pull and you create your podcast episode. I want to give you the plan. So now all you have to do is tweak to what works for you and do the plan. And so if you are interested in allowing me to help you from the ground up, set that podcast up with strategy and do it well, book a call with me at renrobbins.com/book a call. That's WRENROBBINS.com/book a call. And let's set up that call today. And remember, I'm here to help you because life is too short to just wing it.